Hello and welcome to ITWeb TV Live from Security Summit 2025. Today I'm joined by Dr. See if I can get my words out. Obviously didn't put my teeth in this morning. Dr. James Stanger, who's the Chief Technology Evangelist from CompTIA. James, welcome.
Hey, thanks, man.
It's good to have you here. I know you're a bit of a veteran at the Security Summit. You've been a couple of times, I believe. And I believe you're helping with our hackathon this year.
That's right. The hackathon is really cool. It's run by Geek Culture, Gianni Agathama. He just does a fantastic job working with students. And it's really exciting this year because we're doing a red team activity where they're basically going in and acting like pen testers.
Okay.
And a blue team activity. So a set of students, they choose to do that. And that's where they they're defenders and they're kind of taking a look at attacks, looking for indicator of compromise. And then we have the Secure Innovation Challenge, which most of the students are doing. And that's where they put together a whole business proposal, complete with code, and they do demos, and they basically defend their project. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. And are you a hackathon veteran? Do you kind of oversee hackathons in other countries?
I've done hackathons in other countries, not run by Geek Culture or what have you, but similar things like that. Yeah. And then last year I helped Tiani. And like we were talking about before, I think I did such a bad job last year. Tiani's like, okay, James, we'll teach you how to do it right this year. So we've been having a really good time.
Okay. I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure he wants you back with the expertise, I'm sure.
Oh, it's great. It's fun.
Tell me, how does our hackathon or what you're seeing with the South African students, because I want to come on to skills, but tell me, what are you seeing in the South African students compared to the other countries where you've seen hackathons? Are our students kind of up to the level? And I don't want you to denigrate our students, obviously, but is what you're seeing kind of, I mean, we often talk about skill shortage locally, but is what you're seeing kind of reassuring, comforting that actually we have a good youth pipeline?
Very much so. We were lucky enough to have, it's one hackathon, but in two places, one in Kimberley, where it's called the Big Hole, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We had Kimberley, we did that over the weekend, and then the one here in Johannesburg. And the comparison, I think, is stark, actually. I'm seeing students that are having an interest in doing hands-on practical stuff more than in most other countries I've been in. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, succumb to the lecture syndrome.
Okay.
What I see are students that are like, look, I'm in this code here. I'm doing this code in PHP, or most of it's in Python, this Python code. And they're just doing great stuff. One of them was struggling with connecting an API, and they were having permissions issues. So this is hands-on stuff they're doing. And I noticed, especially in Kimberley, and then a couple of the students here, the red teamers are second to none. They were anticipating and pivoting. They were doing things that, like, for example, one of them was saying, well, in order to get admin access, I had to tweak a part of the session cookie. So they were getting right into the nitty gritty there. And I think that's pretty impressive.
Okay, cool.
I thought it was, these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, that's reassuring to hear, because I know skill shortage. I mean, we've been doing Security Summit for 20 years. And we just had a chat with one of my colleagues who said that they were talking around the skill shortage has been an issue for 20 years. Essentially, we talked about it on day one, talking about it 20 years later. I mean, what's your impression of our skills in general in South Africa? Is skill shortage an issue that you're seeing globally? I mean, from CompTIA, obviously, you're kind of helping to grow skills and certify skills and educate them. What's your kind of impression of the global skill shortage, and perhaps then drill down more specifically?
So first of all, I find that what you have is a situation where I see students. I've been lucky enough to visit 4 of our partners, and one of them had a couple thousand students, some online, some in person. I see so many of these students very interested in truly learning stuff, learning the technology and getting into the nitty gritty. So I don't see anybody being behind here at all. The second thing, I think that what's happening is that tech has become more important to business than ever before. And I don't think that gets across as a powerful statement, but organizations have been getting by on old ideas, old processes, analog stuff for too long. So they've had to embrace technology more than ever before. It's shifting more than ever before. And I think that's driving various gaps. You could call it skills gaps, diversity gaps. It's driving all sorts of gaps. And so as technology changes so fast, And as it becomes so much more important, I think that's one reason why for 20 years you constantly have this constant gap going on. Plus, I think there have been kind of old ways of doing education that's more lecture-based. And that's why one reason I was able to come down here to justify with the hackathon, because it shows kind of the world, look what you can do to get a liaison going between doing hands-on stuff that kids are doing, and they're working side by side with folks from Snowed and from Telspace and from other organizations. It's that working together that's really exciting.
Thank you for reminding me about Snowed.
Yeah.
Must mention them because they are partners with the booth. They've been helping with the hackathon for years.
The CEO, he stood up yesterday and was talking. And one of the great things he said was, remember, a great idea that's poorly executed, come on. Even a mediocre idea that's well executed is better than that. So he said, you've got great ideas and you have a chance to really execute. So it was really inspirational to the students.
Okay. I think the one thing that's perhaps when you're seeing globally and what we have locally is we have a big challenge with youth unemployment.
Yes.
I think it's 45% was the statistic someone told me yesterday. So we obviously have this big group of people who are young, perhaps digital savvy, hungry for employment. And then we have this bigger need of skills. I think one thing that someone mentioned yesterday was around we don't have a skills shortage. We have plenty of certified skills. We just have an experience gap.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? I mean, a lot of the corporates obviously want people with 3 years, 5 years. It's high pressure environment. They need people who aren't going to learn and make mistakes on their watch. So how do we get over that? How do we solve that? Coming out with your CompTIA type certifications or straight out of university and then needing that 5 years experience, how do we kind of bridge that gap?
One of the ways we do it is through our training partners. And our training partners are the ones that liaise and work well in convincing employers that they kind of need to get off their high horse a bit and say, you know what, we need to bring in people who are qualified and realize that certification is a great predictor of good performance. And once they realize that, then they can say, okay, look, this person is worth a risk of coming in. And I think that will help solve a lot of that, a lot of the gap that you're talking about with youth unemployment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of overspeccing that happens worldwide. And by overspeccing, in other words, I'll have two quick stories. One, entry-level help desk job must have 2-3 years of experience. I don't know how that, and there's a divide by zero error. That happens a lot more than you'd think. The second thing reminds me of somebody a friend of mine came up with an API, and he had it out for about 6 months, and then he started noticing and it got like 500,000 downloads very quickly, or 1 million plus. And then he saw a job description that said must have experience in that person's API for 2 years. Now, I don't know how you have 2 years of experience in an API that's only existed for 6 months. So there's a lot of that type of thinking going on. But the main thing is that as long as from experience, as long as our partners work with the youth to get them in and learning, and to get them enfranchised, and then to get them in front of corporate leaders with hands-on practical knowledge and with some sort of third-party proof that these skills are real, that they have these skills, that helps. I think one of the things that we see partners that are doing a great job of targeting youth that are in the States, we'll use the phrase at risk maker, or youth that are just really not going to make, that are not going to be included, frankly. And it's the ones that are really targeting those that are bringing people in. And we've seen that throughout South Africa. We like working with those partners especially.
Okay. I mean, I think one thing that one of the interviews that I had yesterday, the lady mentioned was around, it's kind of about finding the right temperaments. It's about finding right attributes as well. And I think that's quite cool that not everyone's got CompTIA skills. I haven't, but you've got a bunch of people with CompTIA skills, but then they might not have the experience, but you're looking for, are they the right have they got that ability? Like you said earlier with the hackathon, can they kind of pivot? Do they kind of pay attention to these details? I think that's
that's a really good point. In the United States, they'll use the phrase skills first these days, because it used to be, there's still a lot of thinking out there that you have to be a math genius or have to get a 4-year degree in order to get into this, into IT. The idea now, instead of focusing on pedigree, okay, where did that person come from? Was it what college, what university? Now it's like, we really don't care where the skills come from. Do you have the people skills? Do you have the curiosity? If I talk to I talk to CIOs and CEOs a lot, and I ask them, what skill do you look for in workers? Something you said triggered this. And they'll say curiosity, the ability to listen. One said the ability to show up on time. So it's kind of like this, the T-shaped worker, you know what I'm talking about, where they have broad skills.
Okay.
And they have skills, like you said, that show that you can work and play well with people.
Yep.
And then a deep skill. And that could be something like security analytics, or that could be something, help desk even, or something. But from a cybersecurity perspective, now people will say, it's not so much just the T-shaped worker, it's maybe an M-shaped worker. So you have to have another set of deep skills. Okay. You know, so something in security analytics, maybe cybersecurity threat, or maybe incident response. Mm-hmm. And then people start talking about the comb-shaped individual, which is like a comb. Wow. So now you're talking.
Yeah, this is getting a lot more complicated.
It's a bit much. Yeah. But I do think that the main thing that I think is really important is that I'm seeing workers, the students in these hackathons that didn't come from a background that would be considered privileged.
Sure.
And yet they were given an opportunity because they had some sort of spark in them, and they had some sort of kernel in them that allowed, I think, them to be continual learners, to be curious, and to listen well. And once you have that, the tech skills come pretty easy.
Sure. Okay. All right. It's cool. So, I mean, one of the topics, I think probably the most talked about conversation, certainly in the keynotes, is probably going to be around AI.
Yeah.
And obviously that impact on cyber. We've got the bad actors who are kind of using it for deepfakes, and I'm sure all sorts of other things. We've got the good actors who are kind of using it to kind of automate and to kind of patch holes and stop attacks and kind of respond. What's your take on how AI is impacting cybersecurity?
You know, I think, first of all, when you mentioned earlier that we've had these skills gaps, or various gaps, for 20 years, I honestly believe that scalability, lower cost, the only way we can do cybersecurity is to bring about scalability at lower cost. And that involves two things: properly training folks in a hands-on way, and automation.
Yeah.
Those are the two things. And I see AI as a form of hyper-automation. The world might disagree. I think they would agree. And so it's that form of automation that's going to help us. And from a cybersecurity perspective, I see it on several levels. First of all, cybersecurity threat intelligence. Mm-hmm. The ability to, if you can really do good analytics, you can see how they're going to come at you. And if you can see how they're coming at you, that's kind of nice, because now you're not boiling the ocean. Going through all those feeds is really tough for a human being to do. It's just scads of information. I think that's even more than an exabyte. A scad is even higher. It's just tons of it. And so the idea is that AI can help summarize that information. And there are basically 4 ways that you can interact or use AI in a productive way as a cybersecurity professional. Mm-hmm. Either as information, like what is this particular attack, informational. The second is productive. Hey, can you create some code for me? So do that. Or if you're a bad guy, create an image or a video for me. Right? The third is co-piloting. And that's where, for cybersecurity threat intelligence information, co-piloting, not just Microsoft Copilot, but co-piloting, meaning, I just did a Zoom session, or I just have all this information. Can you create a decent summary for me?
Sure.
So that lowers time. So that's one example, I think, of how it helps. The fourth thing, by the way, is an agent. You create an agent and you tell it to go do something and report back. So we have the 4 ways. I also see pen testers using it.
Okay.
A lot for discovery, for Nmap and things like that. A lot of that gets automated. That can be useful. From a pen test perspective, there's about 80% of a pen test, I think, that you could probably get away with having AI do certain elements. Not a full 80%, but there are certain elements that you can do, and that saves a lot of time. One time I was doing one not too long ago, and I needed a Python script, and I had AI create it for me. It did a kind of a lame job, and I had to fix it, but it took me 25 minutes to fix it. It would have taken, I'm not a great coder. It would have taken me an hour or more to create it. So that saved me time.
Yeah.
Reports is the last thing for pen testing. Most pen testers hate to make reports. And I would never want a pen tester to have ChatGPT write the report. That would be silly.
Sure.
I don't agree with that. But it can provide guardrails, and you can do a kind of nice A/B test between what you wrote and what ChatGPT recommends. And you don't just copy and paste that, but that can be a help in helping write reports. So those are some areas in which AI can help. I also see AI helping in the analytics side of things because it can anticipate and threat model. So, sorry, a long answer there.
No, that's good. It's good to get all your insight. That's why you're here. So then to throw a slightly kind of not science fiction curveball, but I think it's not something we're dealing with immediately, as far as I can tell. Last year I went to Switzerland with IBM, and they talked about quantum computing and their kind of roadmap.
Cool stuff.
And I think that's kind of post-quantum cryptography is obviously something that they're pushing. But I mean, how far? I think there's been one session in the summit where they talked about quantum. But what's your take on how close we are to Q-Day, I think it's called?
Yeah.
And what are we doing about, like, do organizations need to be acting now? Do they need to be thinking now? What should they be doing? And what are we doing about skills development to meet that need?
Oh, thanks. That's, just a few weeks ago, I was in Baltimore with a guy named Bill Newhouse. He works for NIST, the government.
Sure.
And he's been on the project that has come up with the 3 or 4 now, I think it is, post-quantum algorithms.
Yeah.
And so we had a whole roundtable about this. That was fun.
Yeah.
And a couple of things. So there's dates that are coming up. There's 2030, 2035. And they feel by 2030, it will be feasible for quantum computing to break the algorithms that we know and love. RSA, elliptical curve, and the Diffie-Hellman, the key exchange. Those are the 3 biggies. Those are the things that we're using right this second. And those are going to be trivially, I shouldn't say trivially, but they'll be broken in 10 years because of the qubit and because of what the quantum computers can do. I'm glad you brought up the idea of thinking ahead, because this is going to be a long rollout.
Yeah.
It's 2025. Now think of the long rollouts we've seen. Remember IPv6? Remember when that was coming in 2002?
Yeah.
And it's still kind of rolling out. And we've seen the cloud, we've seen Linux, we've seen various things, even AI, these long rollouts. This is an opportunity for organizations to automate and get that going, because there's a couple of things that are involved here. First of all, those algorithms are going to have to be replaced. The ones that I mentioned are going to have to be replaced by the ones that have been developed.
Yeah.
So that's going to have to happen. But there's also, certificate life is a related but separate issue. Certificate life has gotten shorter. The average certificate life of a TLS certificate is 390 something days, just over a year. That's shortening in a year. I can't remember quite what they are. I want to say it's down to like 100 and something days.
Okay.
And just a couple of years, it could be 49 days that a TLS certificate could be used and is valid, recommended. So with that being shortened, and with this looming idea of post-quantum, automation once again becomes a big deal. So you learn your Ansible, learn your Chef, your Puppet. That's going to save the day, and that will create a lot of new jobs. It might eliminate certain jobs, but I think it will create more jobs and more opportunities. So with post-quantum, I think it's an opportunity to see the maturity of our IT operations. Do you have mature IT operations enough to where you can add automation to it? And instead of automating or AIing nonsense, can you have a good foundation of good processes so that you can put an AI beast in there and actually do some good with it?
Yeah.
It's all about maturity to me, process maturity.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. Some of the people that were there were talking around the discovery process. And I think it was some of the banks. So obviously, like, we know some things are going to be replaced based on service providers. They'll kind of replace those. But there's obviously development that you've done internally that's used algorithms, that's used cryptography, and like suddenly, like, where is all of that? And you've got to kind of go through and find all of that. So I think it's as you say, it's that long rollout. It's going to take a little while, but at least we've got a 5-year kind of runway.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the part of the long rollout is discovery, and people are trying to figure out the best way that they can discover that I guess it's not an attack surface as much as a problem surface, right?
Yeah.
And you're right, discovery is part of that. And the second part is determining what needs to be replaced, what doesn't necessarily need to be replaced, so the triaging of it, the prioritization, and then the actual determining what needs to be done, and then finally automating it and making the swap happen. And that's just not trivial. And when you think about having to do that in terms of from SCADA systems and OT systems all the way to somebody's IoT watch and everything in between, your firewalls. The average device, like our mobile phone, will have 100, 120 certificates on it. Okay, so you can say, well, just reboot the phone and update it that way. But it's this isn't trivial, and you don't simply walk into Mordor on this one. I think that's what Bill Newhouse said or something, or I can't remember if I said it or he said it, but it was. Okay. I'm sure if it was clever, he said it. So.
Okay. Well, I'm sure if it was clever, you said it. Based on that conversation, that's been fantastic. It's fun. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. James Stanger, who is the Chief Technology Evangelist.
That's it, yeah.
For CompTIA. Please stay tuned. We have more interviews coming up.